All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. We are live this morning. Uh, Waiting on Hunter. I'm not sure where he is. This is kind of going to be for his live to walk through a deal. But while we're waiting for him, I got Brandon, Built to Rent, Texas, and Stan here. Morning, fellas.
Morning.
Morning.
Morning. Well, while we are waiting and while I wait to go live on Instagram, Brandon, why don't you talk about a post you had in school about why your kids are, I believe, working in your business?
Yeah, there was a clip. This was on the show Landman, which I don't watch, but I saw the clip. It was actually I was driving to work yesterday, and a talk show that I was listening to played about a 2 minute, 15-second clip of Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys. It wasn't about that, but it was what he was saying in the clip of basically why he has his kids working in the business. And it was really powerful of basically living life together, working together as a family. And it resonated with me because that's what I've grown up with from my grandfather starting our business back in 1967. We had an ad agency business, and my dad and all of my uncles, the family worked in that business, and it grew and had other employees too. And then my father bought my uncles out, and so it was my brother and I and my father until we sold it. And now I've started this property management business, and my kids are beginning to work in the business in some roles. They're still younger, but we're letting them do some work. And my oldest daughter has decided to get into property management with us. And it's very exciting just to have those opportunities to work together. I've worked with my wife since the day we met. We met at a job and have been working together for 21 years. And there's challenges. I mean, there's challenges working with family, but overall it's been a very good thing, and you get to live life together in a deeper way. And I posted that, and that clip from Jerry Jones was just powerful to me, and maybe it resonates with others of working with family.
For me personally, as soon as my kid is old enough, I definitely plan on getting him kind of trained up and understand the business we're in, the real estate we're in. I mean, for us, like both me and my wife, neither one of us really came from that much money. We were both grew up first generation immigrants, middle class United States. So we didn't really have like too much money to begin when we were starting up our careers. But we know that with real estate, we definitely have kind of worked our way into something that can really provide long term stability. So if our son is able to manage it and take over when he's old enough, that's going to give him a tremendous leg up. Where both me and my wife, we always had to work. It was never a case of we worked because we want to. It was always a case of we worked because we had to. We made the decisions we needed to in order to maximize the amount of money we were earning, even if it meant long hours, even if it meant time away from family. We still have to make that choice consistently in order to provide the best lifestyle for ourselves and for our future. But if we're able to teach our son how to manage properties as well, manage our properties, then we're hoping that we can give him the at least the option. Like we still want him to work. Like obviously when he gets older, we don't want him just to sit around and collect checks. But we do want him to have the option to work in a type of job that he's more passionate about, that he actually wants to, where he doesn't have to as heavily factor in maximizing his revenue when he's selecting a job.
Yeah, that was great. We got Small Town Gearheads tuning in. I believe that's from Brandon's channel, probably. So, morning, Happy New Year. Hyder is here, but he's dealing with some legal stuff. He's gonna ask some questions. So, but he says working with family is a biblical principle. That's why farms can be successful family wise. Yeah, so I also want to just people that are tuning in. Sorry, I'm not sure where Hunter is. This was going to be kind of his live because he had a deal posted in our school community, and it was very interesting. He kind of clickbaited a lot of us. He kind of talked about selling at a loss and and how you can still win. But He's not here, but let's take a stab at it. I sent it to Stan, so hopefully maybe he had a
Yeah.
chance to look at it also. And I'm
I
sure.
I looked through it. There's definitely some good principles in there for using creative financing. The main advice I always have regarding creating finance for anyone that wants to get into real estate. The more options you know for how to finance, the more brokers you know, the more lenders you know, the more ways you know how to finance, whether it's through private lending, whether it's institutional lending, seller financing. All those are just tools you can use to take down a specific deal. You can have like the deal of a lifetime, but if you can't figure out a way to fund the deal, that deal is going to go to somewhere else. But if you have multiple tools for how to actually tackle that deal that makes both you and the seller happy, then there's going to be a higher chance of you actually getting that deal and securing that deal. So the post that you sent me that was talking about Hunter's deal essentially looked like a case where the seller wanted a higher price than was actually market that was worth on the market. So Hunter has laid out a strategy he was using to. I don't quite understand the strategy too well, so it would have been probably more helpful if he was here to kind of walk step by step through it. But it looks like he found a way to uh, go over on the price of the deal, but have that overage be paid back to him through seller financing at 0% interest, but then have the amount overage going into a second deal that was actually going to be more beneficial for him. So it'd be a way of essentially biting the bullet where he has to pay an overage, but it's an amortized overage at a very at a 0% interest rate. So it's a price he can accept in order to get the deal and also leverage it into a second deal at the same time.
Yeah, what about you, Brandon? Do you have a lot of experience with creative finance? But so here's kind of the backstory on the deal that I guess Hunter was looking at. So he said he heard about a unique way to get massive tax benefits and create your own financing by purchasing property at a high price and selling at a loss. So that's kind of what he clickbaited us in the school community. He kind of titled the deal selling it at a loss, and how he's still going to win by selling a property at a loss. So let's see. The strategy, I guess it says, has been used by many investors to help buyers and sellers. So here is let's see, the opportunity, I guess. So it's an industrial deal, and I guess the seller and the buyer are about 150K apart, and that's where kind of Hunter had to step in. So, but Brandon, as far as creative finance, do you do these type of deals a lot?
I don't. My expertise is pretty traditional with bank financing and 30-year mortgage financing. I did have one a few years ago that I'm actually going to work on a video, call it the one that got away. And it was, and I stand what you said. I agree. The more you know about different types of finance structures, the more opportunities you have to put things together. And at that time, I had some knowledge, but we were in the middle of building a house. So we were right there building our own house and had an opportunity come. And I think I could have put this together with probably a partner and would have kept the principle I have heard. If you're looking at an opportunity where you have a phenomenal opportunity that you found, but you don't have the ability to buy it yourself, but it's that good of an opportunity, is to offer it to somebody that does. And the going principle is about 30% equity in it, that you brought the deal to the person bringing the money. That's the principle I've heard in the recent past over the last 5 years. This was a deal that was priced at 50%. It was a commercial property. Like this was a commercial property that was 50% undervalued. And I wasn't able to do it. I wasn't able to creatively think about it, but bringing somebody that had the cash, I could have been a partner in it with about 30% equity, is the general principle best practice if you've got that good of an opportunity.
Usually, from what I've seen, anyone who has a really good opportunity or a really good deal, but isn't able to personally close on it. The most common strategy I've seen is they wind up wholesaling that deal to someone else. So essentially, they walk away with a finder's fee. It's like they put the deal under contract, and then they effectively wholesale to someone else, where they sell the deal itself or the rights to the deal to a third party, and they come up with a percentage of the property, whatever it might have been.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That is one way to do it. I'm thinking about keeping it. I'm never
Okay.
going to sell a deal. I don't want to wholesale. I'll be honest. I'm just not a wholesale person. If it's
Nehemiah,
that
I've
good of
never
a deal,
wholesaled. I know the principle of
that's
wholesaling,
earned
but I've never
income.
personally done it.
Wholesaling is earned income. Keeping it is investment income. And investment income's taxed at 0%. Earned income's taxed at 30 to 50%. So if that's just me, that's how I think. Is I'm not interested in wholesaling and working for earned income, paying that much tax on it.
I agree. I prefer passive income over earned income. I do have one of my units is a STR, so that counts as earned income. So that, like, I think aside from my normal job, that's the only earned income I have within the real estate investments I have. Everything else is a long-term hold, buy and hold passive income stream.
All right, well, let's hold on because we have the man of the hour here. We have Hunter here. He was having some technical difficulties, but he's finally here, and this is kind of his deal that he clickbaited us in the school community. So happy New Year, welcome, Hunter.
Yeah, hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for letting me hop on and join. Again, apologies for being late. I don't know why Restream decided to hate me today. So, anyway, but yeah, hey, glad to be here with everyone and sharing a little bit about what I am currently working on right now, one of my newest deals.
No, yeah. So, like I said, I'm glad to always have you guys on. You guys are great. And I also, I hate to say it, but I also use you guys a little bit also because I'm trying to test out getting better at sharing things on screen and showing deals and things like this. So as much as I like having you guys on, you guys are also helping me out getting better with these live streams. So this will kind of be my first time sharing deals or things on screen as we talk about it. So maybe Hunter, we kind of touched on a little bit about creative finance and the benefits, and we're not as experienced as you are. So maybe you can kind of quickly talk about this deal and kind of the opportunities you saw in it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I put something in the school community, for anyone who's there. I'm a part of two different school communities now, but really the whole idea was I'm going to be losing 150 grand the day that I buy and sell this, which are going to coincidentally be the same day. And essentially what I mean by that is I'm purchasing a property. We'll get it for $1.9 million, so a little bit off the asking price, and we're going to sell it for $1.75 million. So there's going to be about $150,000. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so about $150,000 loss there. Essentially, the way it's going to work is I'm going to be purchasing the property for $1.9 million from the seller. I am going to be bringing $1.5 million in cash, and the seller is going to finance their remaining equity, which is $400,000 over a 30-year period, 0% interest. You might be asking, why am I doing this? Why don't I just buy the building at a discount or something else with it? Stemmed out of a conversation I had with one of Pete Fortunato's students. He's down in the Tampa area, Clearwater, but he does a ton of creative financing back into the 80s as well, maybe even the 70s. And the whole basis of this is to buy high and sell low and create benefits for yourself, which in this case is going to be financing. So I did this deal in the first place because the broker brought it to me. He said, hey, I've got a client who's looking to get a certain price point. He wants the price. He doesn't care necessarily how he gets it. And I've got a buyer who's all cash. Can you help me? And, we're going to do the deal now. So essentially, I'm $100,000 in financing, but I'm getting $50,000 cash. Um, source and how those numbers work is that I've got a buyer at 175, so 1,750,000. I'm taking 1.5, so 1,500,000 out of that cash, giving it to my seller, and then I'm pocketing the difference. I'm able to put that into a future project, and I get the new $400,000 mortgage, which is really just the seller's equity. I'm moving it away from this commercial asset onto another property that I currently own, so that I can end up essentially creating a brand new mortgage with fantastic terms.
Yeah, I think that's on the screen right now. I have you put this in school, the magic substitution of collateral. And I think that's the key kind of takeaway from this deal for me was kind of like how you're transferring this, or I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but transferring this financing or debt onto another property in a sense where you have great terms, like you're saying, but now you're acquiring like another asset to cash flow or move that debt onto another property. Is that kind of how you kind of looked at it, or the benefits of it?
Yeah, exactly right, Mark. So I've always been told that the term is walking debt. So it's walking from one property to the other. If you own 123 Main Street and you want to go buy 124 Main Street across the street, well, you can walk the debt from one property to another. And this can work a lot of different ways. So I don't want to get too far down into the weeds. I want to try to answer any potential questions we might have. But essentially, if you have a primary residence and you're going to do a cash out refinance, let's say you're moving from a 7 to a 6% rate, and you could be getting about 150 grand worth out on a cash out refi. This is completely separate from the deal that's on the screen. This is just more of a hypothetical. Well, if you have a private seller who has your primary first mortgage and you're getting bank debt to refinance you out, you could technically take all the cash that the bank is going to give you, not pay off the seller a penny, and just move the seller from one property to another. And essentially, you're moving the collateral that loan is behind for the seller. So that's the whole idea of substituting the collateral for the mortgage, and you can essentially move it as many times as you want, as long as the seller or the lender agrees to do that, and you keep the same terms that you had before. Maybe it's 0% interest, maybe it's other terms that you like.
So that kind of just blew me away. I mean, like Stan, Brandon, have you guys kind of heard anything like that before in any of your guys' deals or your guys' circles?
No, it's definitely not something I've heard about in any of my circles. Still trying to get my head around all the details here. So I'm still kind of working my way through exactly what this kind of deal entails.
I guess my question, Hunter, is it like as far as walking the debt, like you're saying, is that something you have to also get the I guess the original seller's, I guess, permission or authorization to do, or is it something you can kind of just take care of on your own, like you're saying?
Yeah, the short answer is it all depends on how it was originally written up by the closing attorney. Typically, you're going to have to get the seller's permission. But a lot of times you are increasing the lender's benefits by moving properties. So, for example, I'm not going to go move the seller from a property that's worth 500,000 to a property that's now worth 300,000, and now they are over leveraged. In other words, they have lent on a higher dollar amount than the property's worth. I'm always going to try to be increasing their benefits, and that could include anything from moving them from a second position to a first position. In other words, you're increasing the seniority of their debt, which gives them better security, better safety. It could be increasing the loan to value, meaning, or I guess lowering it, meaning that essentially it's they have more safety, there's more equity there that is secured by their debt. It could be changing payments, changing interest rates, whatever you like to do. You kind of have a lot of flexibility. The whole key in this really is the sellers or the lenders. Those are the people that you're going to build relationships with, and ideally, you want to make them happy, right? You don't want to be, just doing stuff for the sake that's only benefiting you and is possibly, hurting them in the long run. You always want to be building that relationship, increasing those benefits, and making sure that you both profit from that.
Joe V has a question. He says, "Is there a requirement of the value of the new property that you need to cover the 400K seller loan?"
Yeah, that's also a great question. So I'm not going to put somebody in at higher than than a 100% loan to value. So in other words, a property that I'm going to secure them with has to be at least worth 400,000 or higher. In this case, I've got a short-term rental property that I'm going to walk the debt to. The short-term rental property is a little closer to my home. It's probably about an hour south of the subject property that the seller is selling. And now, as he moves from being a seller over to a lender, he's going to move his debt from a second position on his property to a first position where he's going to have more equity in the first position than he does being in a second position. So the property that I'm going to put him on is worth between 450 and 500,000. So you can't put him on anything below 400. That's not protection and safety for the seller. So it's got to be worth at least whatever dollar amount you have on your loan.
Are you going to be managing the short-term rental?
I will. That's actually kind of a new thing for me this year. I've got a relationship with a builder, so I've been talking with Brandon some about build to rent, and I've built a relationship with a builder, and the builder is happy to build some cost plus models for me. And sort of in exchange for that, I'm getting a little bit of a discount. I'm helping to manage a short-term rental property that we will collectively own together. So the short-term rental property is currently theirs, and we're working on transferring it to a new LLC and creating a new partnership out of that.
Nice. Well, Stan also deals in the short-term rentals in New Orleans. So I'm sure you could pick his brain on some things that he's killing it out there. So, Stan or Brandon, you guys have any questions for Hunter on this?
So I know that like the first one I'm reading all this, it kind of reminds me in sort of like a 1031 exchange, where not exactly, but like just like a 1031 exchange, you have to do a lot of paperwork and setting everything up ahead of time. Is this a similar scenario where everything, the properties all have to be defined well ahead of time, and it needs to essentially the paperwork needs to be in perfect order, and everything needs to be arranged before the actual deal goes down? Or like, what are the essentially what are the limitations of doing this kind of strategy?
Yeah, really great question, Stan. From my experience, you do want to have most of this at least locked up ahead of time. So to give a little bit more particulars, I have an underlying contract with the seller to buy the property at designated price and terms. My contract to purchase is contingent upon the sale of that same property from me to a new buyer above a certain price point threshold. So, for example, I'm going to have to sell it at least 1,750,000 or higher in order for me to purchase it. So I've got to have those two things that line up. It's two separate contracts. They are contingent upon each other. And by the way, I have a attorney helping me with this. I'm not just drafting my paperwork by myself. I always recommend you get an attorney involved in creative deals like this. As far as the new property, I already had that lined up ahead of time. I knew that the price points would match, so that was part of a discussion with the seller ahead of time. Was to say, hey, you understand that we're moving from property A to property B, and this is how that transaction will be facilitated through attorneys. We're going to move you and essentially put you into a first mortgage. Here's what that, generic paperwork will look like. Maybe I show them a past example or have the attorney walk through that with them. And then we've got an understanding between all parties going in and any paperwork associated with that. So the short answer, Stan, is yes. There is a lot of paperwork and a lot of things involved to get the deal to line up. But the benefits on the back end are huge. You get cash up front, you get tax write-offs, you get 0% financing. I mean, you can't find that anywhere else, and be able to move that from one property to another, which is really the key in this situation.
And that seller, even though he's got that $400,000 debt. If he kept it on the other property, he's in second position. You're moving him to first position on a different property. So he's getting a benefit too. I can understand why he would be okay with it.
Yeah, and for him, he wanted to go get a certain price on his building because he
Mhm.
owns the business and the real estate, and he's separated both, and he's selling both. He wants to go, and typically in my line, we say down and out. So that means he wants to go to cash, and he wants to pay the taxes, and he wants to be done with it. He wants to have headache-free stuff, and so that's why he's getting $1.5 million in cash, and he's willing to finance a small portion of his equity over a certain period of time.
I want to say what's up to Frank, Old Guy REI. Thanks for stopping by. I put his YouTube channel and his shirt link because we need more shirt sales. We're trying to donate money to the Blind Center for the ORAD event, so go check it out. And hold on, I'm going to see if I did this to hopefully, let's see if this works. There we go. So we have Frank, the front. That's what the front of the shirt looks like. And here is what the back of the shirt. I found my tribe. So if you haven't, go pick it up. There's the PayPal link. And yeah, let's help Frank out and we can donate some money to the Blind Center. But Frank also did have a question. He said, what would happen if the property value dropped after you transferred the debt?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've actually never had to experience that. So the short answer is I don't know. My guess is that you would have a conversation with the lender, and you would either need to bring some cash out of pocket to at least get him to where it's not over leveraged. Maybe it's at 100% leverage, or you have to now go move them to another property. Particularly the one that they are going to is a new construction asset as a short-term rental. It's one tax parcel with 3 different buildings on it, all of which are new construction, and it is worth more than the 400. So that thought process is to say, hey, we're not going to initially put you at 100% leverage, so that if it does drop from 450 or 470 down to 400 in value, we're still secured. But that short-term rental property will probably gross. I'm thinking 150,000 a year in income, maybe 120. But those are just some of the projections we're looking at. So I don't think it's going to be valued below 450. I mean, that was really kind of a conservative estimate to begin with.
So this is not legal or tax advice. Go check with your CPA. But Joe V does have a question for you. He says, can you talk more about the tax write-offs?
Sure. Yeah. So again, I'm not a CPA. I'm just really regurgitating information that my CPA has told me. Essentially, when I'm selling this property at a loss, I'm creating, essentially a write-off against my other income. Because I'm not have other sales, I need to have other sales this year. It's real estate professional status. I can move that from a passive loss, so to speak, over to the active side of my income. So for me, again, as a real estate professional, I get to write off the 150,000 against my active income. So in other words, as an agent selling houses, I'm not taxed below 150, and anything above 150, I would start to get taxed at. So it's really just going to lower your adjusted gross 150.
But I have a feeling that was just kind of like an added benefit for this deal. I mean, like you're saying, right? You have 250K capital now to look for your next investment. You're getting some income, I guess, or benefits from managing a short-term rental. So this was more like you're saying. I think the tax was kind of just an added plus to this deal for you. Is that the way I'm looking at it? Or am I missing something?
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. The tax benefit is not the reason I'm doing this. It comes along with it, so I will certainly take that. But I get cash for our next short-term rental because we're going to be able to roll from one short-term rental property to the next with the same builder and continue to build that relationship. As I start to do more projects with them.
Yeah, so Joe V says, so you almost have a 350K transaction, 250 profit plus 100K tax write off.
Yeah, 100, 150. I think technically it takes off 150, whatever my dollar amount from my sale when I purchase versus when I sell the property. Um, it so that transaction happens on the same day at the same attorney's office. So I've just got to show my accountant the HUD from both transactions.
Excuse me. Yeah, we can dig into this a little bit more if that's what people want to do, or if you guys want to move on. But I think the big takeaway, like we have on the screen, and Hunter put this in the school community, the creative finance isn't about playing by traditional rules. It's about creating win-win scenarios for everyone. And I think I don't know if anyone tuned into Dion's live yesterday, but I think that was one of the questions someone kind of put in the comments. I believe they kind of were saying that they don't understand seller finance or creative finance. Is kind of like, you're paying a higher purchase price possibly, or you're going through all of this work to get a transaction done. And Dion said that's kind of, like you were saying, that's not maybe the best way to look at it, right? It's kind of, you're trying to make a situation where it's a win-win for everyone. And I think that's why we kind of touched on before you hopped on why learning creative finance and seller finance and different opportunities out there, it is beneficial, right? And yeah, it can be more work, but at the end of the day, it's a win-win for a lot of people, right?
It's like I said earlier, with different ways of financing something. Even if you just have a traditional lending path where you just talk to traditional lenders, different lenders, they don't all share the same exact financing packages. Even lenders within a specific company, they might have like the same access to a bunch of different financing packages, but the individual agents might not be as familiar, so they might not push a specific financial package. Going back to like one of the last deals I had to go to many different lenders to find a lender where the property and the financing fit at once. Where my initial hope was to try going to an FHA loan to get the last property I bought, but the property itself had window units. I found out that having window units on a property is a disqualification for an FHA loan. So I tried going to another route where I was trying to, essentially at the time, I was trying to find a way to get into the property at a monthly payment that went like made sense, but below a certain down payment threshold. So that was my goal, to essentially find a 10% down payment or lower option, to since that's the cash I had on hand in order to get the property. So I had to go through traditional lending. I had to go through FHA. I had to go through a 30-year amortized loan. I had to find specific lenders that had a financing package that met it. Eventually, I was able to find a 5-year ARM on a construction loan, which wound up being an even higher benefit to me, because one of the things I wanted to do was get the property and then also renovate it in order to fix some of the deferred maintenance on the property. By getting a 5-year ARM that was a construction or renovation loan, I was also able to not only finance the property, but finance a large budget in order to get my renovations in there. So I was simply able to find that it was a lender that was giving out a portfolio loan. So it was not really traditional to the full extent. It was traditional in terms of it was still an institution, but it was an institution that was willing to keep the financing package within their own portfolio rather than sell it off to to a larger lender. So they were more agreeable and more flexible on their terms. So it wound up coming down to, I found a perfect property I wanted. I found the perfect financing package that I was willing to offer. Yes, there was a downside in terms of an ARM, like an adjustable rate mortgage would not be my ideal choice, but I viewed it as the net benefits of that financing outweigh the net detriment of that financing. But it was still purely for me making a lot of calls and making a lot of connections to find the financer willing to work with me.
Yeah, I think that's a great talking point as far as like you're saying. It's not gonna always be like, I'm sure Hunter, this deal didn't just float across your desk, right? It's like you have to go out there. You're talking to a lot of different people, and you're working with a lot of different individuals. And like Stan, like you're saying, you're talking to different lenders. You're talking to all these different people, and it's a matter of finding the deal and networking. I think that's what we're all trying to do is kind of get out there and put ourselves out there and try to work with different individuals. And even like Brandon, I know you're doing ground up builds and build to rent. Is that, do you have to go talk to a lot of different contractors and a lot of different people, or you kind of have everything in house for yourself?
I pretty much have it all in house. Hunter and I've talked about this, and we're going to work on something here soon. Um, that I have a relationship with my builder, so I do small pieces of the build, the things that I want to handle. I'm doing, and that's just a few little items. The My builder does everything else, all the stuff that I hate, all the stuff that I don't have time for, and does a cost plus structure. So we're both getting something out of it. I'm able to use a few of my vendors that saves me a little bit on his cost plus. So, the things that I'm doing are basically the painting, the all the fixtures, countertops, flooring, appliances, and of course, purchase the toilets and all of that, getting it delivered from. For me, I use Lowe's, but those are the things that I handle, and he does the permitting, all the other parts of it. He's doing so. It's been a pretty easy relationship, and it's pretty in house.
I think one of the unique things, Mark, through everyone's stories here is that all of these deals and all of the ways to do it, it's created. Nobody's going out and just finding this just on the street, on Zillow. Like, everyone here is putting in the work to create this.
It's relationships, and I think, Hunter, what you're saying too is one relationship begets another relationship, and then some of them are put together. Stan, you too. It's all of us. It's not just, oh, this falls in your lap. It's over some time of building relationships and strategies, and each one of us has different relationships.
Absolutely. Nothing's going to come easy. I at no point I didn't wake up one day where my agent calls me. It's like, hey, this is the perfect property. What you want? The very next phone call, hey, this is an insurance agent. I'm randomly making phone calls to give out this amazing insurance package to everyone. Immediately followed by a final phone call from a financer that's going, oh, we're just making random phone calls, and here's something that might work for you in case it ever works down the line. It's never falls into place quite like that. Like the property I was talking about earlier, I honestly don't remember how many properties I actually looked at before I found that specific property. So it's a matter of knowing what you want, sifting through a lot of properties that don't meet those criteria in order to hopefully find the one property that does. If you have a specific criteria, there's not even any guarantee that you will find that property. And there's definitely no guarantee you'll find that property in a short amount of time. If you start looking, it might take 2, 3, 4 months, maybe even longer until you find the ideal property where it matches everything that you're looking for. So it does take a lot of work. It takes a lot of driving around, a lot of meetings, a lot of looking at houses, a lot of running numbers. So there's definitely a fair amount of work that goes into it, even if you're just spending a day sorting through property after property after property.
I would say even with that too, every success, I do think the successes get a little easier after you have one good project, if you want to say it that way, one good project, one good purchase, it gets easier going forward. I think the hard work is the startup. And I always looked at it as almost like a big locomotive train. The most energy and the hardest part is getting that train moving. And once it's moving, it uses a whole lot less energy and time and focus, and it gets easier. And I think with getting into real estate investing, there is pieces of that are similar. It's harder on the upfront. Once you get a few successes under your belt, it actually gets a little easier. There still might be hard things to it, but it gets easier and moves smoother.
I think networking is the big part of that for why it gets easier. The first time that I was trying to find a renovation on this property, brand new to the area, first time getting the property, it was right after a major hurricane hit, so all the contractors were completely busy. So we had to make pretty close to 100 phone calls. We got back maybe 3 or 4 phone calls. Out of those 3 phone calls, only one of them actually put in an offer at all for us, or put in a bid at all for us. So at the time, it was a lot of work just to find someone to renovate the property. Meanwhile, if I need this same property, any kind of work done on it right now, I can make 4 phone calls, get 4 bids within an hour, because now I have the network in place where I know all these general contractors. So while before it took a week to get 1 bid, now it's going to take even an hour to get a handful of bids, purely because I built the network ahead of time.
I also
That's great.
put Hunter's school community that he started for creative real estate. So go check him out on school if you want to know more about how to do creative finance and these type of deals. But sorry, what were you going to say, Hunter? Before I interrupted you.
Oh no, you're totally fine, Mark. I was just gonna agree with Stan. It's all about putting in the work, building those relationships, and I think having determination to continue working through whatever your hurdles and problems are. Because whether it's a bad inspection, or issues with your city or county or permitting. Again, whether that's for a rehab or a FHA house you're trying to buy, it's all things we have to continue to push through. And I think that's what makes us better investors, is more of a resiliency around that.
I fully agree with that. There's always a new challenge, new license from the city. Just for the Airbnb we had to go through. We made sure to find a property that met the initial rules of STR licensing at the time we purchased the property. But a year after our purchase, the city changed up their rubrics, changed out their licensing procedures, and essentially voided all short-term STR licenses, and made us go through a new process and new standards for qualifications. So that led to another obstacle that we had to overcome in order to get licenses by the new standards. So there's definitely always going to be obstacles to overcome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I want to also say, so I know Hunter, you're in South Carolina, but looking at this deal, this is in North Carolina. So like you're saying, right? So we are, like you're saying, you're getting out there and you're networking with other people, and deals from other areas are coming across, your table. But I also noticed, so this is in close to Asheville. I mean, does this was this affected by the hurricanes or anything? I mean, is that kind of why, like you're saying, the seller might be down and out and willing to cash in a little bit and kind of just be on the passive side of things?
Yeah. So thankfully, the property was not affected by the hurricane. Lots of other parts of North Carolina were. So, very grateful that this one was not. The seller had really wanted to go down and out before the hurricane hit. But I think with the hurricane, that did impact the buyer pool, or the possible people looking to invest in the North Carolina area. So, maybe more of a bit, benefit to me. I have less competition now. Um, so that helps us be able to negotiate with sellers, get offers accepted, and again, ultimately get terms that work for us here.
All right, I kind of talked about it real quickly, but yeah, why don't you talk real quickly about what people can get from your school community if they join, and what's in there and what can they expect from it?
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you sharing a little bit about that. Let me at least share my vision behind it. I've been a big, follower of Pace Morby, other creative finance gurus on Facebook, YouTube, other platforms for the better part of 4 or 5 years. And I never really found some of the creative finance stuff that I'm doing now through those groups. I mean, I found deals, found a lot of basic stuff, but I found a lot of higher level concepts through some local people that I'm affiliated with. Most of whom, well, not most, all of whom are not gurus. I'm not trying to be a guru either. I'm not trying to, be a know-it-all and just share my knowledge. What I want to do, rather, is build a community of people who are helping each other facilitate deals, ideas, transactions, and make it as a one-stop shop for somebody who's, brand new to real estate, wanting to learn how to buy a property for $0 down, all the way up to people who are doing large multi-million-dollar commercial deals and trying to trade, exchange, and better their equity situation, similar to this deal that we're talking about here today. So I'm going to be bringing on lots of guests. Brandon, Stan, would love to have both of you on as well at some point. So we're going to be talking about all different topics, and then ultimately how to pair creative financing with those topics. So things like short-term rentals, build to rent. How can we, build those for little to no money out of our pockets? How can we acquire short-term rentals for, nothing down or 0% financing, something that's a benefit for us as investors. So that's a little bit about what you'll get with the channel.
I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
Yeah, so there's the link for the school community. He's also on X, so go check out Hunter on X. And then I put Stan's Instagram profile, so if anyone wants to connect with Stan over there. But Stan also has a book, right? So are you?
Yeah, it's just a small book. Like ideally, I'm just trying to get knowledge out there. So I wrote a book on Amazon. I would love to make the book for free for everyone, simply because I'm more about getting knowledge out. Unfortunately, Amazon, they put a basement price on 99 cents. That's the lowest they'll let you charge for something on there. But they do allow me to put the book for free, I believe, 4 times per pay period. So I always make sure I put it, I believe every other Sunday is usually when I make the book free for everyone. So my goal is just to get knowledge out there. I know how real estate's helped me. Now I'm trying to put the same knowledge into other people's hands. Because personally, I wish I knew everything about real estate back when I was starting off in my early 20s. Would have most likely made quite a few different choices that probably would have put me further ahead than normal right now. But a big reason that it's these things were never taught to me. Like no one actually told me about these advantages of real estate in high school. There was next to no financial education when I was going through high school. When I got to college, there was even less financial education. So it was just, I happened to find a couple books, a couple podcasts, start reading about it in my mid 30s. And just in the last 3 or 4 years I've been in it, I've seen the potential, definitely immediate potential benefits and the long-term immediate, amazing benefits. So if I can get people, especially in their mid to early 20s, to really get started early, I think that can put people at a huge advantage, because the earlier you get started, the more time you have for any investment to grow, the more potential benefit you have further down the line. Can't remember the article I was reading, or it might have been a podcast earlier on, where they were essentially crunching numbers on acquiring real estate as a income source. Essentially, they were saying that for most people, when you become a real estate investor, you have a good potential to replace your normal income within 10 to 15 years of starting. 10 to 15 years, it might sound like a long time, but when you compare it to the average person who typically works 45 years in a full-time career, being able to give people the knowledge that could give them a fighting chance to knock 30 years off their required career life, I think that's a huge benefit to get to everyone. Where I can imagine 30 extra years of actually enjoying life rather than having to constantly run on the rat race or constantly keep grinding for 30 additional years. That's more time for hobbies, more time to travel, more time with family. So I'm that's simply a goal I have, is to give people a way to get more time back for themselves.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I think so. We got Curtis here, PE turned RE. He just says, bunch of normal guys killing it. And yeah, so I've also put Curtis's YouTube channel. He's kind of been slacking. I haven't seen too much of him recently, but go check out his channel, go subscribe. And also Brandon put his channel in there. What is the next video you got coming out on your channel, Brandon?
I've got one that launches here in an hour and 10 minutes. I'm going to do just kind of a deep dive into the personal financial statement. I finished it up for the year end, comparing that to 2023 and some insights and things I'm going to change for this year, prepping for 2026.
Okay. Well, I didn't have Hunter, I think, Stan on too close to the end. Do you guys want to talk about 2025, what you guys are going to do, or do you guys want to talk about
Sure.
if US takes over Canada, you're gonna look for real estate in Canada. What do you guys
Not
want to
right
talk
now.
about?
Like, as unaffordable as real estate is in the United States right now, Canada is worse. Like, wow. Like the price I'm looking at over there, the price to income ratios I'm looking at over there, it's like astronomical. I I've actually told several people this, where yes, right now real estate in the United States it is definitely more unaffordable compared to what it was a couple decades ago. Like the big numbers that people keep bringing up is income, the ratio of income to house prices. In the 70s and 80s, it was around 3 to 4 times. So if you're making uh, $20,000 back then, you can usually find a house for around 80,000 back then. Meanwhile, right now the ratio is around 7 to 8 times more higher in in some cities. Yeah, if you were comparing what we have now to what we had 3 decades ago, it is drastically more unaffordable. But then if you start comparing what we have to what Canada has to what a lot of major cities in Europe have to what a lot of areas in Asia have right now, like we are still nowhere near that bad when comparing to them. A lot of cities in Europe right now, their income to price ratio is 10 to 12. Some cities in Asia are currently at 20x to 30x. So, as bad as it is, those areas are still able to keep their head above water. So, that's why I don't think there's going to be any major price correction here. I think there's some wiggle room for price to go down a bit, but I don't see a major crash on the horizon from my personal opinion, at least. I think right now it's just a case of inventory is still on the low side, and unfortunately, this is the market that we're dealing with.
Well, you are clearly more educated on this issue than I am. So I don't know that I could speak to that, but Mark, I'm happy to talk about some of what I've got planned for this upcoming year.
Yeah, we can go whatever direction you guys want to go in. I mean, unless people
Yeah,
want to talk about the deal, if there's more comments, but yeah, take whatever you want, man.
yeah, go ahead.
Awesome. Well, part of this, got to give Brandon a lot of credit. Part of this stemmed out of some conversations with him over the last couple months. But my primary focus for this year is kind of three categories. They all include building of some sort. First is doing what I call build to sell. So, just building a spec house and selling it. Second is doing build to rent. And third is doing land home packages. I'll start with land home packages. Basically, I'm taking a brand new construction double wide trailer, Clayton Homes or something similar, putting it on a piece of land, affixing it to the land, and then selling that as a FHA compliant house. Have a buddy here in Greenville, South Carolina, in the upstate. He and another partner do about 40 of these a year, 40, 50 of these a year. They clear about $40,000 to $45,000 profit per deal, so they're making, I don't know, 1.5, 2 million a year from this, and that's all they do. They crush it, do really well. So I've got a good buddy who wants to do that. So we've got our first lot under contract to do that here in the upstate. So that'll be exciting. And then working on some of those build to rent. I've got a lot under contract now for that. I'm working on a second lot under contract. And I think I've secured the financing for that, Brandon. So I'll mention that too. That's private financing. So better terms than a bank, somewhat. But
That's good.
anyway,
No, that's great.
and then last but not least is the build to sell. So same exact business model as build to rent, except I'm going to sell it in cases where I have a high enough ARV to get some cash out to put more, into future build to rents or just long term rentals.
Sounds good. Very funny. You're coming out ahead.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well, I want to give a shout out to Dan Price, Explorers here. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. We got Colby is in here, so if anyone's interested in getting their real estate license, we're with EXP. I believe Hunter's with EXP also, but connect with us, and if you want to learn more about EXP brokerage and how you can benefit from it. But yeah, I mean, this was a fun one. I mean, we'll get you guys all back on again. I know Brandon, you are working on kind of, I don't know how to put it, as far as evaluating, I guess, the position you're in right now and looking almost all the way into 2026, I believe.
Yes.
We can dig into that another time. But yeah, let's just chat. Whatever you guys want to talk about. Anything else?
Yeah,
I know.
for me, 2025, one of the next projects I'm looking at is I'm also trying to get onto the financing side now, where I've partnered with a hedge fund called JM Capital. They primarily go into financing of investment grade properties. So the only downside is I can't do any kind of residential or owner occupant financing, but I partner with them to be able to give pretty favorable terms on investment properties of any kind, primarily renovations, ground up construction, or simply a buy and hold investment. So that's the still at the beginning, still at the very, very beginning stages where I have a mentor kind of working my way through the process. Just kind of doing it as I can on the side with my full-time job still taking up the majority of my time, but kind of working my way up there and learning as much as I can to make that as a side project, not only to create more revenue for me down the line personally, but at the same time puts me in a position to help other people also acquire their own real estate properties. If I can help them find favorable financing, I consider that a win in a way I can give back to the community as well.
I love it. Oh, Jason's got to run. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, you know what? I didn't even bring it up, but Stan is in New Orleans. I don't know if you're out of town, but I'm assuming. But you're
Luckily, I was offshore working when that happened.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a very, very like shitty situation here completely. In all honesty, if I wasn't offshore, there was a pretty high probability I would have been in the area. Tradition I always have is take my wife and kids over to the river in order to see the fireworks on New Year's. So probably 1 o'clock in the morning that'd be done. We'd probably go out to dinner afterwards, 2 a.m. So I'm not sure if we would have still been there at 3 a.m., 3:30 when everything happened. But yeah, that's definitely a very bad situation that shook the city pretty badly here, and it's an absolute tragedy.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you're okay. Yeah, I know I checked in with Matt and Ned, who are also in the area, and they're good. Matt did say, yeah, some of his friends, luckily they were probably in that area maybe like 20 minutes before the incident happened. But yeah, scary times out there. There's some crazy stuff going on, and yeah, we'll hopefully on January 20th he's able to take office. I mean, that's what I'm kind of concerned about is if he's actually going to make it there. But yeah, this was a fun one. Anything else you guys? Oh, actually, if you guys gotta go, you guys can hop off. If you guys want to stick around, if you guys have time, we can always talk. If Brandon, if you wanna, Hunter, I forget. Do you have kids? I forgot.
No kids.
Okay. Because we were talking earlier about Brandon's post in school about why his kids are in his business and whatnot, and how kind of I think that's almost the vision for most of us. Stan kind of sees it the same way is the benefits of getting your kids involved. But do you think is kids in your future? I'll put you on the spot, but
Maybe.
no.
Maybe. Never say never, but we'll see.
Well, it changes your perspective. I'd have to say on a lot of
That's
things.
true.
I mean, yeah, it definitely, it makes you think differently. Yeah. But Brandon, any more
Sure.
thoughts on your post in school?
Oh, no, it's been a real joy, but they're also learning a lot of financial education. So I do talk about that at home. They hear about all the builds. I had one of my daughters, she helped pick out the tile, the countertops, the colorings of the houses. So I'm trying to find ways to get them creatively involved. And then my son comes out with me and we'll walk the properties and look at it as we're doing the builds. And then, of course, we've got the property management. I've got my oldest daughter's doing inspections on properties throughout the year. She's going to come on full time this summer, getting her real estate license and her some property management classes. My middle daughter and son do a lot of make ready clean. for them. I'm having my son this year will be the first year he'll start mowing a few lawns for us, primarily mine, so that I make sure he's doing them right and teaching him those things. But it's good to see them. They've got work. They're earning money. They're learning work ethic, but then they're also learning a lot. My wife and I, like I said, are in the business, so they hear a lot of the day to day. But I grew up doing the same thing. I heard a lot of the day to day of our family business. We had an ad agency business back then. So this is just, it is truly normal for my life of what I grew up with. And I'm hoping to have a few of them. Would be ideal, would be all of them. That's not probably not realistic because they have some different desires, but have at least one or two of them in the business and doing well, and hopefully can pass on that business to them in the future instead of having to sell it.
Just having them anywhere near a business or even just hearing about the business, that's a huge advantage. And how many people, they grow up and the only thing that they know to how to make money is a traditional job where you show up, you give X amount of time, you get X amount of hours back. That's kind of the entire relationship many people have with making money or having a career at all. Having like kids get exposed to, hey, there's other ways to make money out there aside from just a job, and just having that experience and exposure is just a huge benefit to get them at least thinking differently.
They do. They hear they hear the headaches. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. They hear the headaches, and which is good. They need to
Yeah.
hear all of it. They're hearing an employee that maybe we have to let go because they're doing something wrong or poor work ethic. And then I can sit there and I talk to them about what it takes, what being a good employee looks like, and so I'm able to talk about lots of facets to it. And my two youngest, when we started our business, my two oldest daughters, now they were 3 and 4, and growing up and building that business when it was really hard that first year, and hearing those back then 3 and 4 year old prayers to the Lord about Potts Realty Group, and those are special times that I had to bust my tail, and it was touch and go, and they don't really remember those pieces to it, but we talk about them. That it's owning a business has advantages, but there's challenges with it too.
I think one of my favorite quotes I heard is, the first 5 years you run a business, it's not when you make money, it's when you get good. You make money after those 5 years.
Yeah, there was years there was no vacation whatsoever, and there was a time I remember early on I didn't even know what day it was. I was working so hard trying to get over the hump to make it. I flat missed some holidays because I didn't even know what day it was. I just had to work. I knew I had to.
Well, now you can afford all those cool Aloha shirts. Yeah. But yeah, Joe also mentioned, yeah, there was the explosion at the in Vegas, that another tragic incident. That's a lot of tinfoil hat stuff going on around that one, but that's an interesting one also. But yeah, so Buzz Toon, thanks for stopping by. He's kind of, I'm showing him what I can do about the old rat shirt. So just showing everyone what it looks like. This is the front again. This is the back, and like I said, Frank, old guy REI, is trying to raise money to donate to the Blind Center. So go check out the PayPal link and order your shirt. And also, one last time, go check out Hunter's school community, and we'll get him back on. And maybe we can talk about setting up a school community. Like how is it hard? I don't even know. Like, does it take a lot of work to set it up and whatnot?
Yeah, surprisingly, really simple. I didn't realize how many people have a school community. I think there's like 150,000 communities. Um, I think across tons of different, subsections, but surprisingly simple to start one. And again, part of the reason I started one is to, be essentially for me to be able to give back. I do a lot of free coaching, so to speak, for new investors looking to go into the creative side of it. So I thought this was a better avenue to sort of funnel in my time and energy and effort into one consolidated place. And also inside of school, there is not one single community specifically geared toward creative financing and real estate. A lot of communities will mention something about it, but none were specifically geared toward it. So I said, hey, there's a need for that here.
All right. Well, Hyder is back, and he says he has to file his subpoena now, I believe. But if you don't know what Hyder's talking about, go check out his YouTube channel. I have his link down there. Go subscribe. But he's his Hyder is doing Hyder, so go check him out and see what he's doing, and hopefully he doesn't end up in jail and miss the ORAD event. But that would be disappointing. But yeah, this was a fun one. Thanks for doing this, Hunter. This was great. Walking through that deal. Hopefully people were able to see it. Like I said, any comments or suggestions on me sharing it and what maybe I can work on. But like I said, thanks for doing this, and you guys are also helping me work on some things, doing the lives and whatnot. So yeah, we'll get you guys all back on, and everyone have a great day.
Sounds
Thanks
good.
so much, Mark. Appreciate it.